When my father stood up at my wedding reception, tapped his glass, and announced to 300 guests that I was adopted and not really his daughter, I felt my world stop. But I didn't cry. I didn't run. Instead, I stood up, took the microphone from his hand, and said 7 words that made my mother go pale. Should I tell them, or will you? What happened next didn't just ruin my wedding. It exposed a 25-year lie that destroyed my parents' perfect reputation and changed our family forever. My name is Sarah, I'm 32 years old now, and this is the story of how my parents tried to humiliate me on the happiest day of my life, and how I made sure everyone learned the truth they'd been hiding for decades. Growing up, I always felt different in my family. My parents had 3 children. My older brother David, my younger sister Emily, and me, stuck in the middle. But it wasn't a typical middle child situation. It was something else. Something I couldn't quite put my finger on when I was young, but as I got older, became impossible to ignore. David was the golden child, star athlete, straight as, my dad's pride and joy. They'd spend hours together, fishing trips, football games, father-son talks. Emily was the baby, spoiled, adored, could do no wrong. My mom doted on her constantly, shopping trips, spa days, matching outfits for family photos. And then there was me. I wasn't mistreated, exactly. I had food, clothes, a roof over my head. But I was overlooked, forgotten, like a guest in my own home. When David made the varsity team, my parents threw him a surprise party. When Emily got accepted to her first choice college, they bought her a car. When I graduated top of my class, my dad said good job without looking up from his newspaper. I told myself it was normal. Some kids just connect better with their parents than others, right? But deep down I knew something was different about me. The way my mom would study my face sometimes, like she was looking for something that wasn't there. The way my dad would stiffen when I hugged him, like he was uncomfortable with physical affection. But only with me. He had no problem bear hugging David or swooping Emily into his arms. Family photos were the worst. I'd see them later, hung on the walls, and notice how my parents always positioned themselves closer to David and Emily. How their smiles looked forced when they stood next to me. I have a memory from when I was 8 years old. We were at a family gathering, and my aunt, my dad's sister, pulled me aside. She looked at me with such sadness and said, "You know you're loved, right? No matter what." I didn't understand what she meant then. I do now. When I turned 16, I started asking questions about my baby photos. There were plenty of David as a newborn, hundreds of Emily, but mine, just a handful, and they all started when I was about 6 months old. We lost them in a move, my mom said quickly. Too quickly. I let it go, because I didn't want to know the answer, because I was afraid of what I might find. I met James when I was 25. He was kind, funny, genuinely interested in my life. Everything my family wasn't. We dated for 3 years before he proposed. On a beach at sunset, on one knee, with a ring that probably cost him 3 months' salary. I said yes immediately, because James made me feel valued, seen, loved. When I told my parents we were engaged, their reaction was underwhelming. "That's nice, dear," my mom said, barely glancing up from her phone. My dad just nodded and went back to watching TV. David had gotten engaged 6 months earlier, and my parents had cried tears of joy. They'd called every relative to share the news. They'd thrown an engagement party with 100 guests. For me? Nothing. But I didn't care. I had James. I had his family, who welcomed me with open arms. I didn't need my parents' approval anymore. Or so I told myself. Planning the wedding was bittersweet. James' mom helped me pick my dress. His sister threw me a bridal shower. His family made me feel like I mattered. My own mother came to exactly one dress fitting. She spent the whole time on her phone and left early for a prior commitment with Emily. I should have seen what was coming. The signs were all there. 2 weeks before the wedding, my mom asked if she could say a few words at the reception, a mother of the bride's speech. I was shocked she even wanted to, but I was also hopeful. Maybe this was her way of showing she cared. Maybe she'd finally tell me she was proud of me. I said yes. My dad asked too. Said he wanted to make a toast. Again, I said yes. Because despite everything, they were still my parents. And I needed their blessing on my wedding day. I should have known better. The wedding itself was beautiful. Small ceremony, 300 guests at the reception. James looked at me like I was the only person in the world. For a few hours, I was perfectly happy. The reception was in full swing. Dinner had been served. The cake was cut. People were dancing, laughing, celebrating. Then my father stood up. He tapped his champagne glass with a fork. The room quieted. Everyone turned to look. "I'd like to make a toast," he said, his voice carrying across the room. I smiled. This was it. My dad was finally going to say something nice about me. James squeezed my hand under the table. His mom beamed at me from across the room. My dad cleared his throat. "Sarah," he began, and my heart leapt. "We've watched you grow up. We've been there for all your milestones." I waited for the "we're so proud" that never came. Instead, he said, "But I think it's important, on a day about honesty and commitment, that everyone here knows the truth." My smile faltered. "What truth?" "Sarah is adopted." The room went silent. Absolutely silent. I felt like I'd been slapped. We took her in when she was 6 months old, raised her as our own, and we did our best. Did our best. Like I was a burden, a charity case. But she's not our biological daughter. She's not really a part of this family. I think her new husband deserves to know that before he commits to a lifetime with someone who he didn't get to finish. Because I stood up. My chair scraped loudly against the floor. Every eye in the room turned to me. My hands were shaking. My vision was blurred with tears I refused to let fall. James stood too, his hand on my back, his voice low. "Sarah, we can leave. We don't have to." But I cut him off. Because 25 years of being overlooked, dismissed, treated like I didn't belong, it all came crashing down in that moment. And I was done staying quiet. I walked across the room. My heels clicked on the hardwood floor. The room was so quiet you could hear people breathing. I took the microphone from my father's hand. He looked startled, confused. "Thank you for that, Dad," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "For telling everyone I'm adopted. That's very kind of you." The sarcasm was thick. People shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "But you forgot to mention something. Something important. Something you and Mom have been hiding for 25 years. My mother's face went white. She knew what was coming. "Should I tell them?" I said, looking directly at her, "or will you?" She shook her head frantically. Mouthed the word "please." But I was done protecting them. When I was 23, I said, turning back to the crowd, I did a DNA test. One of those ancestry kits. Just for fun, to see where I came from. I paused. Let the tension build. Imagine my surprise when it came back with a match. A close relative. Not a cousin. Not an aunt. A half-sibling. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. His name is Marcus. And he's my father's son. From an affair my dad had 26 years ago. My father's face turned bright red. He started to speak, but I held up a hand. Don't interrupt. I'm not finished. The room was riveted now. You could have heard a pin drop. Marcus' mother was my dad's secretary. They had an affair. She got pregnant. And when she told my dad, he panicked. I looked at my mother. She was staring at her lap, tears streaming down her face. My mom found out about the affair. About the baby. And she was devastated. But she's from a generation where divorce is shameful. Where you keep up appearances no matter what. I took a breath. So they made a deal. My dad would end the affair. And to prove his commitment to the marriage, they would adopt his affair baby. Me. Gasps. Actual, audible gasps from the crowd. Marcus' mother didn't want to raise a constant reminder of an affair with a married man. My parents couldn't have another child. My mom had complications after Emily. And adopting me would save face. Make it look like they were generous, loving people taking in a baby in need. I looked at my dad. He was standing frozen, unable to speak. So yes, Dad, I'm adopted. But not by some stranger. By you. And the reason you've treated me like an outsider my entire life? It's because every time you look at me, you see your biggest mistake. Your affair. Your betrayal of Mom. My mother was sobbing now. Full-on sobbing. And Mom, you've hated me since the day I entered your home. Because I'm the living proof that your husband cheated. That your perfect marriage was built on a lie. I set the microphone down on the table. So thank you, Dad, for telling everyone I'm adopted. I appreciate the honesty. Really, I do. I looked around the room. At 300 shocked faces. Enjoy the rest of your evening, everyone. The open bar is still going for another 2 hours. And then I walked out. James followed immediately. His family followed. My bridesmaids followed. My parents sat at their table, surrounded by whispering, staring guests. They left the reception 20 minutes later. I heard they didn't even say goodbye to anyone. The next day, my phone exploded. Texts. Calls, voicemails, from relatives, family, friends, people I hadn't spoken to in years. Most were supportive. Shocked but supportive. I always knew something was off. My aunt, the one who'd told me I was loved when I was 8, wrote, "I'm so sorry you had to find out this way." Some relatives were angry. At my parents for lying. For treating me so poorly. For humiliating me at my own wedding. But a few, mostly my dad's side of the family, were angry at me. For airing dirty laundry. For embarrassing the family. For ruining a nice wedding with drama. I blocked those numbers immediately. My parents didn't call. Didn't text. Nothing. David called me 3 days later. "You should apologize," he said. "Mom and Dad are devastated." I laughed. Actually laughed. They're devastated? They announced I was adopted at my wedding to humiliate me. And they're devastated? "You didn't have to retaliate like that," David said. "You made them look terrible." "They made themselves look terrible," I said. "I just told the truth." He hung up on me. We haven't spoken since. Emily called a week later. She was crying. "I didn't know," she said. "About the affair. About you." I swear, Sarah, I didn't know. I believed her. Emily was only 24. My parents had hidden this from her too. "I'm sorry," she said. "For everything. For how they treated you. I always thought you were just, I don't know, overly sensitive. But now I understand. That phone call meant more to me than I can express." My parents finally reached out 3 weeks after the wedding. Not to apologize. Not to explain. But to demand I make this right. "You've humiliated us," my mother said. "You've turned the family against us. People won't talk to us anymore." "Good," I said. "Maybe they'll finally see what kind of people you really are." My father got on the phone. "If you don't fix this, if you don't tell everyone you lied, we're cutting you out of the will." I laughed. "You think I care about your money? After everything you've done? You're ungrateful," he said. "We took you in. We raised you. This is how you repay us." "You raised me?" I said. "No. You tolerated me. There's a difference." I hung up. They called back. I didn't answer. They called again. I blocked them. Remember Marcus? My half-brother? We'd been in touch since I found him through the DNA test. But after the wedding, we got closer. He's 33 now. Lives in Seattle. Works as a software engineer. Has a wife and 2 kids. And he's kind. Genuinely, wonderfully kind. We video chat every week now. Our kids are going to grow up knowing each other. Being cousins. He told me his mom, our dad's affair partner, passed away when he was 20. Cancer. "She told me about your dad before she died," he said. Said she regretted not fighting for child support. For making him take responsibility. "Do you resent him?" I asked. "I used to," Marcus said. "But now, I just feel sorry for him. He missed out on knowing me. And based on what you've told me, he missed out on knowing you too." That hit hard. Because Marcus was right. My dad had 2 kids he never really knew. 2 kids he pushed away because he couldn't face his own mistakes. And that's his loss. Not ours. It's been 4 years since my wedding. James and I are happier than ever. We have a 2-year-old daughter named Grace. She has James' smile and my stubborn streak. We're teaching her that family isn't about blood. It's about love, respect, showing up. My parents haven't met her. They've asked through Emily, but I've said no. Maybe when she's older, I told Emily. When I can be sure they won't treat her the way they treated me. Emily understood. She's in therapy now, working through her own complicated feelings about our parents. David still doesn't speak to me. I've made peace with that. James' family has become my family. His mom is grandma. His dad taught Grace to say papa. His siblings' kids are Grace's cousins. And Marcus? He's Uncle Marcus. His kids are her cousins too. We had a small gathering last month. Just our blended family. No drama. No tension. Just love and laughter and acceptance. Grace played with her cousins. We grilled burgers. Marcus' wife brought an amazing potato salad. And I realized something. This is what family is supposed to feel like. Not perfect. Not always easy. But built on truth. On love. On people who choose each other every single day. People ask me if I regret what I did at my wedding. If I wish I'd handled it differently. Honestly? No. Could I have pulled my parents aside privately? Sure. But they chose to humiliate me publicly. And they needed to face the consequences publicly. Did it ruin my wedding? In a way, yes. But it also freed me. Because I spent 25 years trying to earn love from people who were never going to give it. And that night, I stopped trying. I let go of the fantasy that they'd wake up one day and realize they'd been wrong, that they'd apologize, that they'd love me the way I deserved. And in letting go, I found peace. To anyone watching this who feels like the outsider in their own family, I see you. To anyone who's been told they're too sensitive when they point out mistreatment, you're not. Your feelings are valid. And to anyone who's been hurt by the people who were supposed to love them most, it's not your fault. It was never your fault. You deserve better. And you'll find it. Maybe not in the family you were born into, but in the family you choose. James whispers that to me sometimes when I'm having a hard day. You chose me. I chose you. That's what matters. And he's right. So if my parents are watching this, which I doubt, but if you are, I want you to know something. I forgive you. Not because you've apologized. You haven't. Not because you've changed. You haven't done that either. But because holding on to anger was eating me alive. And I refuse to give you any more of my energy. I hope you find peace with your choices. I hope you treat Emily and David better than you treated me. And I hope that one day you understand what you lost. Because you didn't just lose a daughter. You lost the chance to know an amazing person. And that's your loss, not mine. Thank you for watching my story. I know it's heavy. I know it's complicated. But I wanted to share it because I know I'm not alone. So many people grow up feeling like they don't belong in their own families. And I want you to know, it gets better. You build your own family. You find your people. And one day, you'll realize the people who were supposed to love you unconditionally, their opinion doesn't matter anymore. Because you've found people whose love isn't conditional, whose acceptance isn't earned, who love you simply because you exist. And that's the best revenge of all. If you have a similar story, or if this resonated with you, drop a comment below. I read every single one. And if you want to hear more stories about family drama, justice, and finding peace after betrayal, hit that subscribe button. Thank you again. And remember, you are worthy of love. Real, unconditional love. Don't ever let anyone make you doubt that.